What the junk?
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Brad.
Man, it's been a fun hour, right?
It has.
Yeah.
We've had a good time.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What the Junk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe that's on Spotify or YouTube or
Google.
something else.
Yeah.
Pocket Cast. We're kind of a lot of places
Well,
right now,
we're
which is
getting
super
out there.
exciting.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, this has been a fun day already today.
We were supposed to have a guest.
Yep.
But we couldn't get the microphone to work.
Nope. So,
But luckily, she lives in this house, so she'll be back.
spoiler alert, Brad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
And then the computer restarted as we got started, so that was fun.
So who knows what you're going to get
Yeah.
today, I guess is the point.
Yeah.
But so hopefully we have a whole podcast here.
Oh, we're gonna get this done. So, yeah. So I think today,
Yeah, what are we gonna talk about?
So before we got started, we're like, oh, what are we gonna talk about? Now we don't have our guest, and then I was like, Jen, I think you need to tell people more about like when you hire a home organizer, right? And they come in and they help you maybe with your business or your home or your home office or whatever it is, right? Like it's not just a session where you come in and you're, kind of look at their closet, say, like you looked at our closet and you're like, why do you have so much hand sanitizer? And then you get rid of the hand sanitizer and then you're gone, right?
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes into the planning for the job. You told me that a lot of your jobs are 3 hours, which
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm having a session with a client, I usually block off a 3-hour time frame. I find that is a really good amount of time to get a lot accomplished without hitting like the overwhelm. And for some people, honestly, even the 3 hours is a little long. Usually, sometimes I have a couple clients, it's like 2.5. They're like, I can't. So, which is fine, totally understandable. But yeah, so each one of my sessions are about 3 hours long, and it's really surprising of how fast that actually goes.
I bet.
Yeah, kind of mind-boggling.
So in a 3 hour session, like what's that structure look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question that I actually get a lot, and I honestly have a hard time answering because it could be so different depending on the client, depending on where we are in the project. Is this project just like a smaller closet, or is this project a whole kitchen? Because we might be able to get a whole closet done in 3 hours, but it's very unlikely that we're going to get a whole kitchen done in 3 hours.
Right.
So those sessions are going to look very differently. I will say that usually in a session, there is some sort of a decluttering phase.
Okay.
And again, sometimes it's a very small portion, and sometimes that's most of the session. But it is something that is always good to get into that habit, because even if you're like, well, I just organized this like a year ago, it honestly doesn't matter.
Right.
Because especially when you live with other people in your house, and shoot, I mean, even if you're living by yourself, you get those like, oh, this is kind of random. I got this as a giveaway, or, I got this and I wasn't expecting it. Or maybe I was expecting it, but I don't know, well, I'm not using it right now, so I'm just going to put it in this closet or in this drawer. And then maybe you forget about it, or it doesn't work, or, a plethora of reasons. And so yeah, like just getting into that habit of, okay, I'm going to work on this closet today. Even though I just looked at a lot of this stuff maybe a year ago, I'm just going to go through it all again and reevaluate. Because you're not the same person that you were a year ago either.
Right.
Right? A lot of things in your life could have changed, and maybe nothing changed, but I mean, it's just, you have to relook at it with different eyes.
Right.
Because you're a different person now, really. So yeah, always some form of a decluttering stage. And then honestly, once we get to that point, we're like, okay, we know that everything in this space that we're working on is needing to stay in this space because it is providing value or function to whatever that space is doing. That's when I kind of come in and do some like reorganizing with some efficiency and just making sure that everybody who functions out of that space, whether that's one person or a whole family, can find things easily and not have to dig around and put things away easily. That's also super important. And yeah, just make it a super functional space as best as we can.
Well, and I think it's interesting too because so you recently came and did some closet work here.
Yeah.
And I have a whole bunch of closet jokes, but I'm going to save them for when Jessica's here. But I think like you worked with her, right? And you kind of evaluated a closet, worked with her. And then I feel like there was this whole other process of like when the kids came home, she'd be like, don't just shove stuff in the closet. We have a new system, right?
Right.
And then people are looking for stuff and like, where's the whatever? I remember it was stuffed next to the dog bowls, and we're like, yeah, like with that stuff moved and now it's over here.
Right.
So I feel like there's also like a component of helping to teach people to teach other people.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's what causes some rifts in relationships sometimes.
Yeah, you know this thing called communication
No.
that we hear a lot about?
Sometimes.
Yeah. No, it is definitely a big piece of that. And getting into new habits of, because your brain will, I'm like, oh yeah, it's right next to the dog bowl, whatever.
Right.
Like, oh, the dog bowl's not there anymore. What do I do? And
I get very frustrated when I can't find things.
we all do,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I know it was here somewhere. I'm not losing my mind. Like, where did it go? So yeah, there is a phase, like, after you reorganize something that it might be a little frustrating again. But you know that it's in there.
Right.
You literally just reorganized it. And hopefully then the next time, like, oh, yep, I remember we put it in this drawer because it's next to what I actually use it for. And you're just creating new, like, pathways in your brain.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think too, being okay with taking the time to do that. We get so busy, right? So I think about, I love working out in my garage. I think every podcast I talk at least once about my garage. But there are like work nights where I go out in my garage, and instead of working on the car, I put away all my tools. I get everything back where it's supposed to be, because it just kind of gets to a point where like things are kind of chaotic and I can't find stuff. And then I'm spending more time finding stuff and I'm frustrated.
And actually doing the part that you love to do.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's a piece of that sometimes you're like, all right, well, I have all these other things I need to do, which is what I should be doing. And so I think being okay with the fact that this is kind of like a work time, right? We're like taking time, if you work in an office, right? Taking time to like get your office reorganized, rearrange, reevaluating what's in your drawers. And that should be okay as being part of work time. You shouldn't have to feel like you need to stay after
I'm
work
wasting time.
to do it, right?
Right.
Yeah, like it's a good productive part of what you should be doing on a
Absolutely.
regular basis, whether you're working, home, or in the garage doing your hobbies, right? Like whatever you're doing, it should just be like a piece of what we do on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's where this like idea of maintenance comes
Right.
in, right? So I do talk about that with my clients because just because we organize something doesn't mean that everything just magically gets put away. Like, no, you still have to do the work. It's just now that hopefully the work is easier and not as frustrating. I was at a client's house this last week. It was the first session, and so we were kind of going through her whole house and just trying to talk about her pain points and kind of what was going on. And we kind of talked about like she has 2 kids, and they're old enough that they can help around the house. And she's like, they offer sometimes of like, Mom, how can I help you out? Like,
Right.
that's some great kids right there. And she's like, I honestly don't know what to tell them because we try to put things away, but I don't know where away is. And so, yeah, that's a real problem because like, okay, so now I feel like everybody has this moment. You can totally envision it where you have the thing. You're like, okay, where does this, where does
Right.
this need to go?
Absolutely.
And you're just kind of like holding it and desperately looking around the room and going, okay, I don't know. I'm just going to put it on this counter.
Yeah, I'm just going to shove it in this drawer.
This drawer, it's fine.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing of assigning homes to things. Of like, yep, this is where this thing lives. And if this drawer is full of those things and I don't have space for it to fit in there, I need to do what I call a one in and one out. And you'll hear a lot of professional organizers, talk about that. That, if I need to put one more thing into this drawer, I need to take something out and it needs to come away from the house. Not find another drawer. It just needs to be removed.
Right.
Because we've assigned this drawer as the home for these types of items. And that's it. That's the rule for the house, right? So when we get to that point where that's full and we got a new one in, an old one has to go. So
Yeah.
that helps just kind of like
It does.
get some homes for things. It makes the whole tidying process so much less stressful because you're not having to be creative with every single thing you have of like, where am I going to put this? Where am I going to put this? You just know, like, oh, yep, this is the home.
I think it's interesting you brought up the kids piece, right? So I wouldn't say my kids want to help, but sometimes they do help. And sometimes they want to, but sometimes it's a little
It's
bit.
not everyone's
Yeah,
favorite chore. Like, I
no.
get it.
So our teenage daughter, who I love dearly, one of her jobs is unloading the dishwasher, right? So I do a lot of cooking in the house, but she unloads the dishwasher. And I have a drawer where all of my like knives for like preparing food go,
Yeah.
right? Then we have a different drawer with silverware and where like the steak knives go.
Okay.
And then we have a cutting block that has some steak knives and other knives, right?
Yeah. I already see where this is going.
Oh my God. So the other day I was so frustrated and I'm like, where are all my knives?
Right.
I don't know where any of my knives are, right? And so she was in the area and it got very quiet. I'm like, Ashley, where'd you put my knives? Where are my knives, right? And she's like, I put them in the silverware drawer. And I'm like, that's not where the cooking knives go.
Right.
She's like, I don't know the difference between a cooking knife and
Right.
a steak knife. But I do, when I cook, I prep over in the one area. So that's why those knives go there, right?
Makes sense.
And so I feel like maybe because of my communication about where things should go without even explaining why they go there, then kind of breaks down that like willingness to want to help because it's like, all right, like he's all grumpy
if you're just going to
about
yell at me anyway, why should I
this.
do this?
Yeah. And if I talk like this to my kids, it's called yelling, which I'm like, I didn't yell at you. Like, I didn't like the voice that you use.
The tone is all about the tone.
Yes, it is. So, and I'm like, there's a difference between I'm aggravated and I yelled. So, yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think that sometimes there's a lot of like conflict with that, and I would imagine that if you had come in and we had spent 3 hours together organizing the kitchen, and we had established that these knives that I use now go over here, and that wasn't communicated to somebody else, and then they're putting the knives where they used to be,
Right.
then we have this system, but that person wasn't a part of this system.
Right.
So I'm sure that communication piece is a like really vital piece of navigating through all this, but also people understanding the why, right? It's not just about, how it looks or whatever, but there's a reason to it, right? Like it makes sense to put, if you have two closets, there's certain things that make sense to be in one closet and then the other closet, but maybe things migrated to the one area, like
Exactly.
over time, but it
Yeah.
didn't necessarily make sense. But now, like the way your life works, this makes sense. So, like we never used the closet that you had helped us organize. We never really used that closet for like general, like for clothing, like coats and stuff in the past because we used the front door, but then when Jessica started parking in the house garage, everybody started coming in the other door. So then nobody uses that front closet anymore. Things migrate over there. Then we put up the coat rack, but then there's like a million coats in the hallway. And so, it really kind of migrated even what we used that closet for.
Right. So that's a really good point, too. So something in your life changed, some other routine changed. And so now you have to evaluate all these other like steps in that process. So that honestly is a question that I ask a lot of people of like, okay, where do you enter your house? Where's the common drop zone?
Right.
And instead of
Like right next to the door.
exactly
like
all the time,
Just
right?
right next to the door.
So then if is that really a habit to change with everyone? Is it worth that? Or do we just come up with some solution where now these things have a home and they're not just a pile on the floor?
Right.
Like you have the coat rack. And okay, you know what? The coat rack is getting kind of full, so do some of these coats need to go back in your closet upstairs in your room or something
Right.
like that?
Well, especially as like the seasons change, right?
Exactly. So like every day in Ohio, you have to have a different coat.
Sometimes it's 7 times in one day.
Oh my
You
gosh.
just never know.
It's so true. It's so true.
The kids can go to school in shorts and then it's snowing when they get home and you feel
Right.
like a terrible parent.
Right.
So,
So this time of year is definitely tricky
yes.
to not have 10 million coats. But yeah, just like being aware of some of those environmental changes, also has an impact on where we put things in your house and kind of what's going on.
Yeah, it's funny because so when I think about like Jessica and her kids, and they used to live in California.
Oh, yeah.
So the weather's pretty much the same all the time, right?
Right.
Like, and I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up in a very small house with I had one small closet, right? And so we had like a Tupperware tub kind of thing, right? And you put your winter clothes in there in the summer, and
Right.
then when it started getting cold, you got all your winter clothes out, and you put all the shorts and t-shirts like
Right,
in the
right.
tub, right? And then that went underneath the bed, and you would get that out, the next year. And so, I see like their closet stuff full, and I'm like, well, why don't you just take your winter clothes out because it's summer, and then just put them in a bin, and then just switch them out. And then I was like, it's kind of fun because it's like getting a bunch of new
Right.
clothes.
It's like Christmas.
Yeah, that you had the whole time,
Yeah.
right? But it's like,
Ooh.
yeah, I forgot I had this shirt, and now I get
Yeah.
to wear it again because it's warm today until
Right.
it snows tomorrow.
Right.
So, and so I think that just some of those differences, they're like, that's weird. Why would you put your clothes away in the winter? Like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, just put it all in the thing. And I'm like, because there's like 6 months where it snows and you can't wear shorts. So, like, why keep your shorts out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
And then, okay, so you have like, say you have a 3-hour session,
Mm-hmm.
and you maybe, let's say, you did like a kitchen kind of thing. You started to establish like a process. So I'm assuming that you have customers that, that have you back, right? So what does like that next kind of follow-up look like? Like how does a organizer maintain a relationship with people?
Yeah. So some of the clients that have had me back multiple times is because we've done different houses. No one that fancy yet. Different rooms in the house. So again, if we're doing like a closet, maybe we get that done all in one day, and the next time I come out, we're gonna look at the kitchen or the bedroom or etc. So again, if you're starting a new space, you're just kind of starting that whole process over again. Like, okay, let's declutter, let's figure out what the function of the space needs to be, and you just kind of go through the whole steps. And sometimes when I'm coming back the second time, we're still on the closet because there was a lot stuffed in the closet, So yeah, and there's been some times where, maybe they had me out pre Christmas, and now they've gotten this wave of toys that's come in.
Right.
That's like, all right, now what do we do? And so there's kind of like a refresher, I don't know, kind of session that could be triggered by events like that.
Right.
But mostly, honestly, it's just like we're doing different rooms in the house.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we just did a job on Monday.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a home organizer, but it was the garage, right? So the garage was packed from the very bottom to the ceiling, and stuff. And so they had actually inherited the house from their parent, right?
Okay.
And the parent had passed away a couple years ago. And so they had that house and they had their other house, and they were trying to just do all of this themselves, right? So the mom was a hoarder, and like just everything. I mean, just everything was in there. Same with the house, right? The house completely so packed that they couldn't even live in it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been trying to do this themselves, but they had a pickup truck and a car, and they have a small child and they're both working,
That's
so
a lot.
just trying
That's a
to like,
lot.
do all this stuff. And so, so they called, we came and we did the estimate, and we gave them an estimate on it. And so we cleaned it out, right? So it was 7 full trucks of stuff. And that was only 1 truck from the house and then 6 trucks from the garage.
Whoa.
But they were so excited to be. So one of the neighbors had come out, and he was like, "I haven't seen inside that garage in a really long time, right? You lived there for a long time." And she was like, "Yeah, neither have I. Like, it's just been packed full of stuff my whole life,
Right.
And so he does like motorcycles and racing go-karts and stuff. So he was super excited because he was gonna, like, one side was gonna be his workshop, and like so it was funny as we're like getting like we would get like this much of a floor like opened up, right? And they were
Right.
over there sweeping it. They were so excited, right? Like
I love that.
they have this space because they've been working on it for like 2 years, and like
Right.
they just had all of these ideas for what they wanted to be able to use the space for, and they never could do it. And so we get it all cleared out. We sweep it all out. She was excited because she would be able to park her car in there in the winter. So they had agreed that like the one side was for her car, the other side was for his projects.
That's awesome.
And so it was like a good outside space. We cleaned out a bunch of stuff from the house so that they had at least had enough room to be able to move into the house so that they could kind of finish, because all this stuff was, it was her mom's stuff. So they didn't want to just throw it out. And so they wanted the time to be able to go through it and decide what they really wanted to keep. And so it was just, and then when we got done, they were like, we've been working on this for 2 years. You knocked this out in like 6 hours. And we finally can use these spaces that we've been dreaming about for like 2 years. And so for me, like I probably, I don't get the opportunity to spend as much time like kind of getting into the intimate details of like what you're using a space for. But it was a really cool experience to be able to be there and just to see like they've been dreaming about this space for years, and now they can actually use the space and do stuff with the space.
Yeah.
We also found a live possum in there, which was really fun. But
What?
yeah, and then we had a crazy squirrel that stole a piece of our pizza. So,
Rude.
oh my god! So this squirrel like had no ears. It was like missing. It was
It's
like,
had a rough life.
oh, it was stalking us. It had a really rough life. So we ate our pizza, right? And we're holding,
Yeah.
and so we had like one piece left, and it was in the box. We put the box down, and this squirrel runs over, jumps in the box, grabs the pizza, and ran off. And we were like, oh my god!
What?
Like, yeah.
Like, did that just happen?
Oh my god!
That's amazing.
It was.
Good on him, though.
I wish I
man.
had it on video.
Yeah.
It was no Subway rat, but it was a Toledo squirrel. So, yeah.
Love it.
Well, I think that's it. This is
Yeah.
a good episode. This is fun.
This was good.
Yeah.
So
And especially on a fly because our original plan didn't work out. But we have so much to talk about. We
Yeah,
can
we
just
do.
talk all day.
Yeah, we do.
So,
So fun fact, one of my friends who listens said that during one of the episodes, she was like, this is just so inspiring, I cleaned my desk. So I loved that.
I like
so,
it, yeah.
challenge for you, next episode maybe. Because we're like 15, 20 minutes. Like, that's a good time to get some stuff done.
it's a perfect time.
Yeah. And you get to listen to us, be entertained,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And if you have so much stuff on your desk, you need a truck to haul it away.
Right? You know who to call.
Right?
Awesome. Well, we would love to hear from you guys. So we got a Facebook page that's up and running. You can also leave some comments on however you're listening to this podcast, or on YouTube. Because if you've got some topics that you want us to talk about, we would love to do that.
And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe, which the thing
Yeah,
is
you
on here.
can.
I don't know where. Maybe it's over here, there. I think it's over here. Over here.
Okay.
Maybe. But you should subscribe.
You see it. You see
Yeah,
it. You're
you'll
an
see
adult. And then, yeah, so like our stuff, share it. Share it with your friends.
We're total Midwest good buyers.
Yeah,
This
we
is
are.
how we do it.
100%.
All right. Brad and John from What the Junk.
All right, see you next time.